Welcome to the You on the Camino de Santiago podcast. This podcast is for and about first-time pilgrims walking the pilgrimage routes in Spain, France, and Portugal. With your host, guide and longtime pilgrim, Nancy Reynolds of the Camino Experience. Our pilgrim wisdom continues this week, this time with someone getting ready to walk the Camino, rather than with someone who has already walked. Today you are going to meet Pilgrim Annie, who is walking the Camino Francés this spring. Hi, this is Nancy, and I so enjoyed the conversation you are about to hear. I love what Annie says about the intersection of human spirit and Camino spirit, and how she intends to explore how the themes of surrender and restoration will work into her pilgrimage. I think Annie is going to speak for many of us as she shares how she is being called to walk the Camino as a long walk with God, to discover what God is trying to do in her life. Beautiful, right? It reminds me that the Camino experience isn't a one-off experience. Yes, it can be an incredible experience, and there is so much to explore and discover along the many Camino routes. So much to see and feel and smell and taste and touch. It truly is a journey of the senses. But let's not lose sight of the entirety of the Camino experience. What do I mean by that? I mean that the Camino isn't just a long walk in Spain, France, or Portugal. Do it and then go home. It's much more than that. Nearly every Camino story I have ever heard begins with a pull at the heart. Many pilgrims describe it as a calling. Now, you may wonder, to what is the pilgrim being called? Well, that's the great mystery, isn't it? That's the question of why walk the Camino that so many pilgrims have trouble answering before they make the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. Sometimes I push people to explore that question as if there are secrets lurking in the answers. Well, I actually think there are. When you have some sense of why you are doing this, then you can be more intentional about how you do it. You can intentionally explore how you want to do it, and you can plan a journey that suits you. For me, that means the planning process is an important part of the pilgrimage. How you get ready matters. It matters, I believe, because this may be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for many pilgrims. Let's not take that lightly. It matters, I believe, because for so many pilgrims, walking the Camino de Santiago is a transformative experience. We struggle to explain what that actually means, transformative experience, or how it happens, but it happens so regularly that we have to pay attention. So the pilgrimage to Santiago begins with a call to something bigger, bolder, and deeper in one's life. And then it delivers just that. And in between, there's a whole lot of walking, a wide variety of emotions, thoughts that swirl and whirl and hopefully eventually settle down, possibly some pain, maybe suffering, some good food and wine, and an international community of people all moving toward a sacred destination. I've shared with you that I've been walking the Camino Francés for nearly 20 years, and I've started the pilgrimage from every major city along the Francés route. I've walked over the Pyrenees from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port 20 times, and I'm scheduled to do that part of the trail 2 more times this year. I share that not to brag or to try to impress you, because honestly, I'm not impressed by all of that. What I am impressed by is the life I created after walking the Camino each time. By the transformation that has taken place because I walked my first Camino way back in 2005. Do you know what I've done each time? I've brought it home and into my life. So that's the real goal, I think, of walking the Camino, to bring it home and into your life. Yes, you want to have a great time on the trail in Spain, in France, in Portugal. Yes, you want to meet people from around the world, to break bread and drink wine together, and to share stories with them. Yes, you want to meet Camino angels and find Camino magic. And you will. But here's what I really want to talk about. How will you find the angels and the magic when you get back home? We're going to do this together. We need the Camino spirit in our communities, our families, and our circles of friends. We need to bring it home with us and share it. We need it in our leadership and throughout every country of the world. Did you know that last year, pilgrims who made the journey to Santiago de Compostela came from nearly every country in the world? When pilgrims presented themselves at the pilgrim reception office in Santiago to get their Compostelas, they reported being from 196 different countries and territories. Imagine the impact we could make by bringing the Camino spirit home, by being Camino angels wherever we are. You are already making an impact, and I know that just by the stories of the 80 or so pilgrims who have been guests on this podcast. This podcast is called You on the Camino de Santiago. If it had a subheading, it might be You in Your Life. Well, there's a twist, eh? Let's see where that leads us. For now, it's going to lead us to Annie, my guest today. But first, let me say this. If you have just found this podcast and this is your first episode that you're listening to, I want to invite you to go back to the beginning, to season 1 of the podcast, and start there. That's where we begin the storyline with understanding what the Camino is and what it means to do this pilgrimage. It's where we begin to contemplate what kind of Camino experience you are after. Maybe you don't know. So we take it step by step to discover what you want for this journey to Santiago and to the very center of you. That all starts in season 1. I have a roadmap for you that will guide you in how to plan and prepare for your pilgrimage. You can get it when you get back to season 1, or you can get it now by going to thecaminoexperience.com/roadmap, or by finding the link to get the roadmap in the show notes for this episode. Okay, enough of that. Yes, now let's meet Annie. Annie, hi. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Oh gosh, your circumstances are different than anybody else who's been on the podcast. And I loved what you shared about what you're imagining and envisioning for your Camino in terms of the spiritual aspect and what questions you're investigating. So I don't know if you remember what you sent me when you let me know you'd like to be on the show, but we're going to talk about some good stuff today, I think.
All right.
So how about we start where I always like to start, putting the pin in the map. Will you please share with us what your plans are?
Yes, I am walking this spring and I will be starting in St. John Pied-de-Port. And I have about a 38-day window to work with. That includes travel, though, from the US on both ends. And hopeful that I'm going to make all 500 or 491 miles, but we'll see.
Okay, so starting in St. John, going to Santiago, do you plan to go on to the coast to Finisterre or Murcia?
I am actually leaving that to I'm actually leaving that to the kind of the spirit of the Camino because I'm kind of open to if I need to taxi ahead or bus ahead, and if I have extra wiggle room at the end, I would love to go to Murcia. But my goal for my Camino is truly to be receptive to whatever it is that I'm being called to receive on this on during this time.
Ooh, wow. So that harkens to your motives or your reasons for walking the Camino. Will you talk with us a little bit about what's calling you to the Camino?
Sure. Well, I think to talk about what is calling me, I have to back up just a teeny bit. I think I always knew or had heard of the Camino of Santiago. I certainly knew one of my pastors growing up had visited at least the cathedral growing up. And then I remember about 15 years ago, a girlfriend of mine, dear friend of mine from nursing school, she was a West Coast girl, California girl, and she called me up and she's like, "Do you mind if I just crash at your house on my way to Spain?" And on my way back from Spain a month later. And I said, Sure."
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah, I was at the time, I was kind of, I say, buried in babies. And, she was obviously she was going through something, I think, at that point. And she was telling me about how she's going to walk this 500-mile thing and staying in a different place and sleeping with strangers every night. And I just remember thinking, It's curious, but strange." And I didn't really like nothing stirred my heart at that point. But then fast forward, I don't know, maybe about 2023, just like on scrolling on Facebook, and you know how the algorithms go, you start to see different discussion groups and such. And I started to see these reoccurring discussions about the Camino. And I would see people's pack lists, and I was seeing I didn't belong to any of these groups. And I was just fine. I found it intriguing to, learn about these people's travel itineraries and, their motives for going. And then it started just, the idea just started, I was like, this is really interesting. I wonder, I got to learn more about it. So I got a book by Carrie Gillespie called Pilgrim.
Pilgrim. Yeah.
It was funny. One of her very first chapters of her book, she mentions that once the idea, or the idea of the Camino is sticky, was the term she used. She says once the idea hits, it tends to stay and it doesn't want to leave. And
Mm.
I laugh. I kind of chuckled at it at the time, but now, looking back, it is absolutely true that once the idea gets planted, it just has not wanted to leave. And I even went so far as my husband and I were getting ready to celebrate our 25th anniversary. And I said, honey, we should go on the Camino and celebrate our anniversary, by 25 years walking the Camino. In very, very clear terms, is like, that is not my idea of a good time. Not how I want to spend our anniversary, but I will let you think about how you might want to do that. So yeah, and so then I started just realizing that the Camino is this. I think I started getting this idea that the Camino was this microcosm of life.
Ooh, I think you're onto something. Tell me more about that.
So, and again, this is just by joining some of those Facebook groups and reading some more books and hearing other stories, that it seems like the Camino is filled with a lot of joys and sorrows, like life,
Yeah.
right? You've got mountaintop views, you've got fog-filled valleys,
Mm.
you've got endorphin rushes, and you've got crippling pain, and you've got fresh beginnings, and you have last breaths of life. And if you're lucky in life, you get a good, fair balance of both of those.
Mhm.
But nobody goes through life unscathed. And I think trial and um, suffering really is actually a part of life.
It's interesting as you're describing that. I'm thinking, let's create the brochure for the Camino. And if we put all that in there, would people still go?
Well, there's got to be something to this because, again, I don't know a single person for whom life has gone exactly as they planned it.
Mhm.
And I think that there is something that draws the human spirit to wanting to understand why. Why the
Yeah.
brokenness? Why the sorrow? Why the disappointments in life? Why did things not work out the way we did? Why did people come into our life only to pass prematurely?
Mm.
Why do why do our struggles with our family, why does sometimes our family not look like the what we thought it was going to look like? These are big questions, and I'm not any different than anybody else.
Yeah.
Everybody, I think, has these questions. I think everyone has to wrestle with these questions in life. There's no way I can prevent grief and sorrow. I
Yeah.
can't prevent my children from making poor choices. I can't. prevent the march of time and its effect on age, its effect as we age and health problems as we're starting to grow older. And I don't want to sound like a naysayer or a pessimist, but as the older I get, how do we wrestle with these, when life is just a little different than what you would have thought it would have looked like by now?
Mm. I love that you're saying all this because when we hear about the Camino, oftentimes we hear or we see videos with these beautiful stories of connection and gorgeous scenery and people connecting into Camino families. And then we discover that there's so much more to it than that. And it's almost as if it could come with a warning label, but it actually wouldn't matter. It's like telling your teenagers, hey, this is what it means to be an adult. And it just maybe a little of it sticks, but mostly it goes sliding right on through. And
Yeah,
until we get there, until we get to that adulthood, then we actually know what that might mean.
I like that. I like that. And I sometimes, I sometimes will joke with friends or my husband, and I'll be like, when I grow up, I'm gonna have this figured out.
I hate to tell you, I had some friends who were in their, I think, late 60s, and I asked them, I was going through a really difficult time and very confused about what I was supposed to be doing with myself. And I asked them, do you have this figured out? Did there come a point when it was all clear? They're like, oh no, that point has not come and probably never will.
Yeah.
Something else that came to mind as you were talking, the pilgrimage is in origin a Catholic pilgrimage. And so many people go because it offers the potential for a long walk with God, or it offers spiritual reflection or religious practice. But everything that you've just described reminds me that no matter what you believe or what you believe about God or religion, we all have these deep questions. We all are searching for some of these answers. And I
Yeah.
think that's the invitation of the Camino.
When in preparing for this, the only homework you had given me was just kind of think about your reasons of why you're walking the Camino. And I won't lie and say that has given me no small amount of anxiety just thinking
Oh,
I actually don't know why
okay.
I feel called. All I know is that there is a call
Yeah.
and there is something to wrestle with. And
Mm,
I don't think, and I'm confident that regardless of your faith tradition or lack thereof, this is something that I think the Camino calls the human spirit because it's so
mm.
deeply human to just want to connect with something higher than yourself.
Yeah. Higher, bigger, broader, something. Yeah.
And I will say that I think we have this, I know personally, as I've been thinking about this, and I've now crossed the I think it's the 58 days until I leave now. As it gets closer, I'm getting a little more nervous and I'm having to ask myself, do I really want to go? Is this still really what I want to do, especially without having a real clear idea? Why am I doing this? Why am I leaving my family for this length of time? And I think, I'm not sure, but I think it's come down to this illusion of that I have control over anything. I can't I can control what the clothes I put on, but and when my children were little, I could control, largely whether they were happy, whether they, when they were sad. It took very little for me to those problems. But when little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems, and the same as as I am getting older, I can't simply snap my fingers and make high blood pressure go away, for instance, as an example.
Yeah.
These are just things that we don't have the control. And so, okay, well, why am I struggling with this so much? What do I think that is the Camino is going to give me? And I think it's I'm looking for a closeness of something that is beyond me.
Mm. Do you have an inkling of what that is?
I think it's rooted in the fact that, and I think that I think there's something actually beautiful about suffering in life. I think that there's something, um, I can speak to myself. I like to think that, life is going to one day reward me by getting easier because of some of the things that we've dealt with as a family
Mm.
and with our children and such. But the fact of the matter is, life doesn't owe me anything. In fact, the only thing that we're not wired to have an easy life. We're actually wired for growth. And growth is hard and it demands a measure of strength that you're not just inherently born with. You have to work through. And strength isn't cheap. As anyone who has lifted weights, no, you have to lift for a long time and you have
Mm.
to lift heavier and heavier amounts of weight in order to see impact, to have build muscle. So stress isn't always bad. Trials aren't always a bad thing. Suffering isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that, and I'm going to tap into my own faith tradition here. I think that there is something very beautiful about the meaning of suffering. I think that our Lord went before us and taught us that there is something to be gained by carrying a cross, and that teaching us to pick up our own cross and to follow after him. That unless a seed dies, and falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a seed. But if it dies, and if it dies to itself, it can bear new life. So I think what I'm turning over in my head, and I think it's my Camino has already started. I think it's going to be just about reconciling the sufferings that, the trials and the struggles that we have had. It's not because we have done anything wrong. It's not because we've been forgotten by God or by, it's actually been an invitation for growth.
That's an empowering way to look at it. That's coming from a place of strength and a place of grace. Wow. Kind of want to sit with that for a moment. Yeah. So when you imagine yourself on the Camino, do you have any pictures in your mind of how that will play out along the trail?
Um, yeah, I think, well, I have a very vivid imagination, right?
All right, let's have it.
I also struggle with, with some anxiety, so I have a lot of fears of all the
Okay.
things that could go wrong. But you know, in terms of like being on the Camino, I think what I'm hoping that I can succeed at doing is surrender.
Mm.
Surrender to the weather, surrender to my body and what my body is telling me.
Mm.
I have expectations of all 500 miles, but when push comes to shove, I may not make it, and that's okay. If I make it to Pamplona and you know, I am just like, you know what? I'm gonna fast forward to uh,
Somewhere.
somewhere and just finish out. And because for whatever reason, I want to surrender to some of the people that I'm looking forward as an introvert. This is hard for me, but I'm
Mm.
looking forward for the encounters of the people and letting them speak truth to me too and sharing their struggles. I'm looking forward to just kind of having that camaraderie of because I know a lot of people come to the Camino with heavy, heavy burdens, heavy heart.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to like there being a community spirit of, it's not just our bags we're carrying, it's the burdens of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'll find that. What I'm sensing from you is that you are the type of person who's not afraid to have those conversations.
No, I'm I'm introverted, but
Yeah.
I'm an extroverted introvert, if that makes sense. I love one-on-ones like this. I
Yeah.
love, smaller, intimate gatherings, and I deeply appreciate really meaningful conversations. And I think that the Camino is going to be a very fertile place for deeply meaningful conversation.
And I think if that's what you are expecting, that is exactly what you'll find and attract.
I hope so.
Oh, I'm loving this image in my mind. Yeah. Okay. So when you talk about what you're afraid of, you said you've got some fears and you're seeing that you're going to just need to surrender. Would you be willing to talk about some of your fears and what you're concerned about?
It's funny. The other night, I actually went to go see the Bill Bennett movie. That's the local My Way, The Way My Way,
Uh-huh.
and I was super excited. I was there amongst all these, fellow pilgrims and will be pilgrims, and I was just struck with a sense of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't belong here. I don't belong with this. This is for other people. I'm worried that anxiety is going to grip me. I'm worried about having a sleepless night at St. John Pied de Port. And I feel my voice even cracking right now. I'm worried of taking that first step. It's going to feel like staring down that mountain, the Pyrenees, and just kind of losing my footing. Not well, maybe figuratively and literally.
Let's hope only figuratively. Let's not do literally. Not on the first couple days.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do anticipate there being a lot of camaraderie that if I do, kind of feel paralyzed, with right at the outset, I have no doubt that I will look to the right of me, look to the left of me, and see that there are other people who are probably experiencing the same anxiety and fear and doubt and imposter syndrome that I'm feeling.
Yes.
But I do have confidence that once we get going, it'll be that river that you keep talking about, that fast
Yeah.
green river.
Yeah. And you can count on that, that there will be many other people feeling exactly what you're feeling. And everyone is looking for a friend in Saint Jean.
Yeah.
Everyone is. And the some of the best places to find your new friends are one in the line waiting to get your credential in for stamp at the pilgrim's office. And especially if you arrive with a busload of people or a trainload of people, I often suggest that if there's a line, people go get checked into their accommodations first. But there's no reason not to stand in that line and start talking to people. And if you were to say to anybody in that line, I'm so excited, but I'm also really nervous, you're going to have a friend immediately because I promise you the other people in the line are feeling exactly the same. And then the other great place to meet people and connect is where you're staying. Those are the two places where you are going to immediately connect. And the thing is, like I said, everybody's feeling some sort of nerves because you look up at that mountain and you do have that thought, what was I thinking? That's a tall mountain there. What? Yeah. And if you confess that concern, even the lightest concern, you're going to have people who are going to want to connect with you and share the journey, share the first steps out of Saint Jean. And then when you're on the trail, you are going to be, as long as you don't start too late, you're going to be walking out of town with other people. And it's just, introverts do have a tough time sometime, but even a hi, I'm Annie, that opens the door. And then Borda, of course, has a wonderful evening meal with the 14 people who are staying there. Yeah. Wow. Those are some real big emotional experiences getting
Yeah.
ready to walk out of Saint Jean.
The other thing that's really cool, that I do feel that it's funny that the way this has just unfolded over the years, from 15 years ago to being kind of weirded out by the idea, to 2023 having the idea take root, and now it's 2025 is interestingly, for Catholics, it is a Jubilee year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a special year of pilgrimage.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because Jubilee years are interesting because they only happen every 25 years. It actually harkens back to in the Old Testament when every 50 years the Israelites had these Jubilee years where they were forgiven their debts, they got their land back, slaves were freed, and more importantly, it was intended for both the land to lay fallow and no planting was done, and the people were supposed to rest. Nobody was supposed to be working. And the idea is that God will provide.
Mm.
God will provide. Like, this is your year of restoration, of restoration is a word that keeps coming to me. And it's kind of pregnant with meaning for me because, I think about the relationships that I want healing from, or healing with. wounds that I'm praying are going to be, wounds are going to be healed. What has been broken will be bound back together.
Mm.
What's broken, what's lost will be found again. And I think to myself that what a rich opportunity. And it's not a coincidence that this is a Jubilee year. And
Yeah.
like God's bullhorn, shouting to a world saying, I want you back in relationship.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
want you to dig back to who you really are.
From the rooftops.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad to know that that's what that means. I didn't know that, or if I knew it, it was something I'd forgotten years ago. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love your insights. I love how thoughtful you are in how you're approaching this. And I can hear that it's coming straight from your faith.
Yes. I have to say that I'm looking forward to laying it all down um at the foot of the throne of God and just,
Yeah.
asking him to, you know, m- I'm looking forward to the Lord encountering me and me encountering the Lord mutually in a way that I think pilgrimage, we're well disposed. A pilgrimage is specific, I think, to disposing us to kind of step out of the busyness, the mundaneness, so that
Yes.
we can avail ourselves to those kind of encounters.
Mm.
And I'm that's what I'm my 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 faith tradition definitely speaks to that.
Okay. Beautifully put. Really. Yeah. As I look upon the Lord looks upon me. That's like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that. Mm. Whew. So, when you think ahead to Santiago de Compostela, let's just say this all goes beautifully and as hoped for in terms of logistics and timing, because we know that there's going to be all these other things that we can't account for that will come in. When you reach Santiago, what do you anticipate?
I'm hopeful. Actually, let me put it to you this way. I mentioned the Jubilee year.
Yeah.
Theme for the Jubilee year is to be a pilgrim of hope. And
Mm.
when I think of the end of this particular pilgrimage, it's not the end of what God is trying to do. Our stories are not finished until we take our last breath. And that includes those that weigh heavy on our hearts right now. Their stories aren't finished being
Mm.
written either. And so what I'm hopeful for in what I'm imagining is just being overwhelmed by the experience and being filled with the idea of hope. I'm
Oh,
looking forward. I'm hope doesn't St. Paul says that hope does not disappoint. Um, it's not just an optimistic view of life, but it's an actual expectation that you're going to have something good that even though it's difficult to obtain, and there's where the suffering comes in. That's where the trials and effort comes in. But it's okay to think that it's going to be okay, not for lack of any effort on your part, but
yeah.
it's not a it's not a simple it's hope is a rejection of despair too.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Hope is a belief of things unseen. And I hope when I'm in the plaza there that I can really be, I hope that I feel hope wash over me
Oh.
so I can truly be a pilgrim of hope.
Wow. I want to sit with that one too. That's just so beautiful. So let's imagine this pilgrim of hope named Annie going back home. What are you bringing back home?
Hopefully, hopefully a certain detachment from the illusion of control that I think I have over things, and that maybe, just maybe, relinquishing those like letting God take those reins that I've been spending so much time. It's really a futile exercise to try to take the reins of control, whether it's our children or, our health or the ways of the world or um there's no real control there. I'm hopeful that I can have a certain sense of detachment, not in a not in a complete laissez-faire perspective, but but to have a real detachment of, Lord, whatever you want, I'm I'm here to I'm here to do your will.
Yeah, so it's not a shirking of responsibility, but
No.
rather it's a surrendering to that which is bigger and greater.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I had a vision, and if you'll pardon me again, but I am going to mention in the Bible, in the Gospel of Luke, when they talk about Simeon having the encounter with the infant Lord, and he got this little peek of redemption.
mm,
He says, "Now let your servant go in peace. Now I can die." Right? You know, he didn't live to see, the happy ending. He didn't get to live to see that, but he got to see the peak that it was gonna be okay. And that's where I kind of see myself as being a Simeon or an Anna, sitting in the temple and just um, trusting that whatever I am asked to carry, whatever trial I'm asked to go through, it's for a greater purpose of growth and making me stronger. And
mm.
I'll be a better person for it. Hopefully, I'll be a better mom. Hopefully, I'll be a better wife. Every blister, I think every will be
Yeah.
a badge of honor, if it especially if it makes me into the woman I'm supposed to be.
Ah, wow. I mean, we can let things tear us down or we can let them lift us up.
Yeah.
And I can see what you're choosing. It's really a very bold and brave and faith-filled choice. Oh, I love this. Hmm. So do you mind if I switch gears a little bit and ask some logistical questions?
Sure.
Yeah. So you're going to the Camino on your own, and your
Yes.
husband's not going, and your children aren't going. May I ask how old your children are?
Though the ones that are still at home, I have two 12-year-olds and a 14-year-old.
Okay. How are the family going to be dealing with you not being there? What happens when mom goes away for 38 days?
Yeah. Well, it is no small amount of anxiety producing for everybody. My youngest daughter, especially. They are all supportive. My little ones I call my little ones, my 12-year-olds are, I think, a little unsure that why I'm doing this, why I have to be gone for so long.
Yeah.
Trying to, we're going to we'll be able to FaceTime every day. I'm going to have an international phone plan. So I won't have to just wait until I get to a bar or to a albergue to get on Wi-Fi. I'm going to be available, make myself available. If they need to talk with me in the middle of the walk, I'll make myself available.
Nice.
I have already printed out a map of the Camino Frances. I put it on our kitchen wall, and I'm going to have them color in each dot, and they're going to watch watch mom's journey, and they're going to color me in as I go all the way across the map of Spain. I'm expecting there to be tears on both ends.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's going to be a great opportunity for my husband and the kids too. There's so many questions that I have that I can't answer, that I have that I can't answer, that they have that I can't answer. But they've all been remarkably supportive.
Mm. And the thought that keeps going through my mind is what a wonderful example you're setting for them.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope that they will do the same too one day.
Yeah. And to see mom take this brave step, even though she's nervous or
Yeah.
outright scared or trepidatious or pick your word to show that you can do hard things, you can do scary things when it's what you're called to.
Yes.
It's a beautiful example.
And we talk about that a lot. I encourage them to, tell me what they're most worried about or scared about. So if I can relieve some of those worries now, I can. But to be honest with them and say, I don't know what to expect.
Mm,
But I do know that if something goes sideways, I can hop on a plane and be right back home.
Yeah.
Daddy's going to be here. You guys are going to have a fun time. There's all manner of plans that have already been made with friends and family that are in the area. So I don't think they're going to be any, they're not going to have a lack of things to do while I'm gone.
Very good. They won't be sitting around just doing marks on the calendar. When's mom back?
No,
When's mom back? Yeah. Very
hopefully
good.
not.
And maybe they will too. Maybe they'll be a part of that, to really understand the value of mom being home with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. So let me ask you one more question.
Mhm.
Is there any question that no one has asked you, but you wish someone would?
That's a really good question that I wish someone would ask.
Yeah. Something that you want to talk about, but you haven't been able to because no one's asked the right question.
I think there's a part of me that is nervous to go by myself.
Mhm.
And there's a part of me that wishes that I did have somebody coming along with me.
Mhm.
But then there's also an element of, I don't know that that's the Camino that I'm meant to have. If I have a companion, I think it might alter
Mhm.
the kind of experience I'm meant to have. I think I'm meant to have some, and I don't think I'm going to have a lot of alone time because I think this I'm going to be walking at a pretty busy time of the year.
Yeah.
I think that, I think when I first started this out, I was really kind of hoping that one of my sisters was going to come with me and my husband was going to come with me. But, that somebody would just jump up and say, "Hey, can I come with you?" But then, I have to be honest, I'm not sure that that is actually what is supposed to happen.
Mm.
I think I'm supposed to go the way I'm supposed to go.
Okay. What makes you think that?
I think I need to Well, first of all, I think I just need to be alone with my thoughts for whatever time for as much time as I can, because I really do want to carve out space for that still small voice. But I think there's also an element of go away into the desert, and there's a loneliness in the desert, and I think but it's fruitful. I think that
Yeah.
can be fruitful.
Mm. Mm. Very nice. You certainly will have time to be with you. It's a great gift of the Camino. Sometimes a challenge because there are so many people on the trail. And if you want to walk in solitude, sometimes you have to let people know that. But yeah, my favorite line is, I hope you'll excuse me. And then I'd like to walk alone. I'm walking in silence, something like that. I hope you'll excuse me. And no one has ever said, no, I'm not excusing you. I want to talk to you.
I like that. I think I'm going to adopt that term.
Nice and gentle.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, do you have any questions that I can answer for you?
I do actually. If I'm staying at Borda, that's only 9 kilometers up a mountain.
Yeah.
How much time would you estimate that would take? Because I'm in my head, I'm trying to justify getting up and leaving early, like I know the rest of the pilgrims will be, and having that camaraderie and having plenty of time. But I also don't want to finish and get up there by lunchtime and then, you know, have a whole day
Yeah.
at Florida. Although maybe that's not the worst thing to have happen. But what time
It's
would
not.
you recommend getting out of St. John Peter Port knowing that I'm heading to Borda?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one that comes up a lot. And so many people don't stop at Borda or Refuge or Psalm because they think I'm going to get there at 10 in the morning. And then what am I going to do? So there's sort of a juggling act to get the sweet spot on this one. Borda opens for check-in at 2:30 in the afternoon. So you don't want to get there any sooner than that. But Orson provides a very nice intermediate stop, even though it's only 1 kilometer away from Borda. And so you can leave whenever, let's just say it's 7.8 kilometers to Orson. And I've seen people do that in 2 hours, and I've seen them do it in 4.5 hours. And so the question is, how strong can you anticipate you'll be on steep uphill?
Mhm.
If your normal walking pace, my normal walking pace is 4 kilometers per hour. It takes me, I think I dropped down to about 3 kilometers per hour going up to Borda. So that's, sorry, going to Orson. So it takes me, if I'm not waiting for anybody, if I'm not sweep with my groups, it's 2.5 hours to Orson and then another 20 to 30 minutes up to Borda.
Okay.
Okay. So my groups leave at 10 in the morning. We take a nice leisurely morning. Anybody who wants to go to church goes to church. We do a final bathroom stop and final croissant, final coffee, whatever we want, and then start about 10. And some of my people are up there by 12:30, and some haven't gotten up there until whatever 4.5 hours is after that. So 2:30, 3 o'clock. Yeah. So if check your fitness level, check and see how fast you think you'll be going up that hill and what time you want to arrive. Orison is a wonderful spot because they have a big terrace and you can sit out there and meet other pilgrims and chat with people. You can get a snack or a drink or even lunch from their bar and eat on the terrace or eat inside the dining room. And so that's a great holding spot. Great holding spot. So if you plan to get to them by, say, 1 o'clock, and then at 2 o'clock start heading up to Borda, that's kind of a nice plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned going to church. One of my goals is to try to hit mass as often as I can, but as I understand that in Spain they do daily mass in the evenings and less so in the mornings. Is that better, different, or I mean, is that different in St. John Pied de Port? If there does it sound like there is morning mass?
Yes. Yes. The question is what day of the week. And so
Okay.
when you get to Saint Jean, go to the church in the center. It's a beautiful 15th century schist church, very lovely. And there'll be a notice on the outside saying what time their services are.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so you can just check that there and find out. Backup plan, the Pilgrim's office may know.
Okay.
But yeah, that I've always seen that sheet on the outside. I know on Sundays it's at 8:30 in the morning. Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't know any other day of the week because I'm always there on Sundays.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have one other question, and this might
Sure.
not be able to answer, but I am hoping to carry on my bag and not check my bag.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that I have a 38-liter Osprey, and
Okay.
when I look at the measurements of my bag and I compare it to the airline restrictions, it's right at the mark. And so, what in your experience are do you see many people trying to put their bags in there and they just can't do it? What am I staring down? Because I don't love the idea of checking and having to travel a lot lighter from the get-go.
Yeah. My rule is always don't check your Camino backpack going to the Camino. Coming
Yeah.
home, no problem. But if you were to check it and in the unlikely chance it went somewhere other than where you're going, that would really throw off your start. So my backpack, when I'm carrying a backpack, it's always with me. And a 38 liter should fit just fine, especially if it's not stuffed to capacity. So 38 liter is on the larger side for what you'll see on the Camino. Many pilgrims will have a 36 or even a 32-liter that they'll stuff up really full, and it becomes a little hard to maneuver when it's full. But a 38-liter, you may get away with not filling it and have the ability to sort of squish it down a little bit. But yeah, I think you should have no problem getting that on.
Okay. I'm right on the cusp of I mean, I'm right, it said 56 centimeters, and my bag is the frame is exactly 56 centimeters.
I think you'll be fine.
I'm hopeful that that will be
Yeah,
the case.
I think you'll be fine. And you know, the thing with airplanes is some airplanes you put your luggage into the overhead bin the long way, and some you put it the short way. And so if it doesn't fit the long way, it'll fit the short way,
Oh, that's true.
right?
That's
So you
true.
just turn it around so it'll
Depending on
it'll
how,
fit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
You might get the some dirty looks from the flight attendants, but just smile and say hello in whatever language they are speaking, whatever their primary
Yeah,
language is. Yeah.
yes.
Great. Well, any other questions?
I'm sure I'm going to think of more when after this is over, but no, I don't think so.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you and hearing about your Camino dream and about just the depth with which you are approaching this journey. It's such a gift. And I think my listeners are going to take away so much from this conversation. I know I have. And it's given me a lot to think about. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I do have to say that I really have to give credit to you in this podcast because I really feel that it is what grew proverbial legs for this whole idea in the first place. Was your podcast and the way you have broken things down from in baby chunks, baby steps, all along the way, and it's really been a blessing.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. This is so much a labor of love for me. And
I,
to get to spend time with people getting ready to walk the Camino is just an unbelievable gift to me. So thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like I'm walking with you.
well, you will be, because I'm going to be taking a lot of Nancy wisdom with me on the trail.
Well, I hope when you come back, you'll come back on the podcast and share about your experience.
I would love to.
Excellent. All right, Annie, have a beautiful journey, and I'll look forward to that next conversation.
Thank you.